I'm going to try and do my best to summarize what I think is the reason or the message behind the book, because a good bit of it is repeatedly being stamped in the face by these very, very uncomfortable, brutal situations that many people across Romania, Ukraine, but largely in the Soviet Union, Russia especially, is that they're dealing with. But it's a book that's supposed to be about good as well, right? It's about good and evil. And it kind of does take a little while it took a while for me to get to the stage where I was like, oh, I kind of understand here. It seems to me that you have an issue with cynicism being used and weaponized as a reason for people to not have hope. What you have done is displayed some of the most egregious transgressions of humanity from recent history.
Very recent history. You know, this isn't World War One. This is
since World War One, almost exclusively since World War One.
Yes.
Yeah, 1917, right?
Yes.
So you've tried to put out front, this is how depraved and awful and disgusting human existence can become. And yet it didn't win.
Yes.
And yet people said that it would never be defeated. And yet it happened essentially overnight from everything to nothing in the space of no time at all, which means that when we are facing struggles in future, that degree of hope should be something that should be continued forward, given that life right now is not as bad as it was then. So the delta between where we want it to be and where it is isn't as big to leap. How far am I off?
I think you said it better than I could have. I would not change one word of that other than maybe delta, because people won't get that reference. And I'm being only a little glib. I think you articulated it perfectly. In one case, it was literally overnight. When Helmut Kohl, who was the chancellor of West Germany, he's in Poland with Lech Walesa. And, you know, telling this, it's just, this is a very emotional book for me, because when you see the photos of these people and their kids, and, you know, there were times when the people in charge were ready to start shooting them, and someone else was like, we're not shooting them. And you see these children, it's just like, you know, it's like, hear these stories of, like, I think it was Seth MacFarlane who had a ticket on 9/11 and he like missed his flight, and he has, I think, that ticket framed in his house, like a plane ticket. It's just like, you know, it's just terrifying when you realize this wasn't hypothetical. Tiananmen Square was June 4th, 1989. So that year, 1989, when shit's hitting the fan, you know, East Germany, they're like, we want another Tiananmen Square. And they put the guns in the hands of the military. They gave them the bullets. They were ready. So you had Helmut Kohl in Poland with Lech Walesa, who was the head of Solidarity and kind of the main figure in liberating Poland from communist rule. And Lech Walesa says to him, you know, I don't think the Berlin Wall is going to be around much longer. I think it's going to be like a matter of a few months. And Helmut Kohl laughs in his face. He laughs in his face. Lech Walesa was, I believe, 46. Helmut Kohl, I think, was 60 or something like that. And he goes, look, you're young. You don't understand how these things work. They take a long time. It was like patting him on the head of Poland. And it fell the next day, the Berlin Wall, the next day. And Helmut Kohl literally says, there were so many quotes in this that I found that I was just like, I can't, if this was in a movie, it would be ridiculous writing. And Helmut Kohl says, I'm at the wrong party. And he gets on a plane and gets his ass out of Poland. And what else is just great with the fall of the Berlin Wall, I know we're spoiling to the good parts, is no one even bothered to call Gorbachev, right? So, you know, East Germany is heavily backed by the Soviet Union. It was kind of a Soviet satellite state. It was part of the Warsaw Pact, which was basically a counterweight to NATO. All these countries agreed to have mutual defense. And Gorbachev wakes up, you know, in Moscow, and there's people dancing on top of the Berlin Wall. And no one bothered to call him or let him know. And you can only imagine what's going on in his head. You know, it's just seeing that. But it was the same thing that was going on in the head of people all over the world, because the Berlin Wall for so long was, you know, imprisoning half of a city or three quarters of a city, in a sense. People were shot. Children were killed in prison for trying to cross it. And then, you know, they're just drunk and blasting their stereos. You know, to have this thing literally overnight go from a symbol of imprisonment, torture, oppression to the biggest party on earth is something that I think even now it's hard for us to wrap our heads around.
Going back to this,
Society is broken, want you locked inside a cubicle. Addicted to pornography, liquor, and pharmaceuticals. Tell you that you're fat and poor and you were never beautiful. Then tweet how much they love you when they hear about your funeral. We can't be free, can't have no peace till we're on the same team. But y'all are sheep, glued to screens, just part of the